Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about the classic LEGO Space Shuttle. This thing is awesome. I love this piece because when I was younger, I always loved these classic LEGO space guys. We actually had a bunch of vintage Legos at our beach house in Puget Sound, and I would sift through all of the pieces, and I eventually found enough pieces to build a full classic LEGO space figure. And so I obviously took him home. So he's always been in my collection. Eventually I lost him though, and I acquired these two recently. This one came with the LEGO Space Shuttle, but this one I got on his own. Surprisingly, this classic LEGO Space Shuttle is another one of those reviews that I've beaten everybody on YouTube to the punch at, which is surprising because it is LEGO. This is an awesome classic LEGO space piece because it's a nice and small piece that's affordable, but it's also a ship, so it's cool. And it's a two-man ship as well. So you can fit two of your LEGO space minifigs in there, which I think is cool. But the only problem is actually you have to move this antenna here because your other minifig isn't going to sit down unless you move the antenna more towards the middle like so, and then he'll sit fine, but that's okay. It's just interesting that in the instructions it tells you to fit him in like this. But some cool features about this ship are, first of all, you got the dual steering wheels here. I like that. You've got the LEGO Space. You've got the classic LEGO Space logo with the ship going around the planet there. I love that. I've always loved that classic LEGO Space logo. And unfortunately, it's kind of faded away on this vintage classic LEGO Space guy here. But that tends to happen, especially with the white ones. It fades into the same color. On the other white one that I used to have, it also did the same thing. But it's nice and clear on this piece, so that's nice. You've got some sort of radar scope or laser gun. I like to think that these are the laser guns here, and then this is the radar scope. Because then you have two guns on the very front, and then you have the radar scope that can turn and look out for people while you're going in different directions. That would make more sense. You've got a really cool classic control panel piece. Some sort of screen here with some different color buttons. Look like they're just red and green and gray. Still looks very nice. I like how that screen is one of those old school like sine wave analog Vectrex screen things that they used to use in military computers in the 50s and whatnot. It's actually what the very first tennis game was on. Not Pong, but a different game called Tennis for Two. Not Pong, but a different game called Tennis for Two. Here we have some really cool thruster pieces. They can also be used for speaker pieces. And that's actually what I used them for most of the time when I was a kid. I used these pieces a lot. I would put them on posts, and I would use them as speaker pieces, or put them on a wall as a speaker piece to alert the LEGO citizens or LEGO crew to an attack. Got two of those, like I was talking about earlier. You got this antenna piece here. Put that back where it goes. You got two translucent red pieces here, atop a 6x2 gray piece. Underneath that, though, we have a very interesting piece. Here, we have the fin piece. So how this piece works is it goes in between a pair of 3 studs, so 6 total, and it wedges in between there, and it has these pegs that keep it stable on each side. And it would be the equivalent to a piece that would cover this whole piece here nowadays. And last, we have what I like to think are engines of some kind. That's what they're usually used as on Legos. I believe these exact pieces were what were used on the very first land speeder model, the side engines. And so, although I don't believe that these should be a turbojet engine because it's a space vehicle and you wouldn't use a turbojet engine in space, they may be a turbojet engine just because that's what they look like. but you can't use a turbojet engine in space, so I would just pretend that there's some sort of nuclear rocket engine that leads to the back of these thrusters here. The back of the instruction manual here is super cool. So you got the space shuttle here, and then you've got some sort of bigger shuttle, a couple rockets, one being towed, some other drivable vehicles all around. One looks like it has some sort of portable house thing, which is pretty cool. Then you have the big moon base. Now, I actually almost got one of these when I was a little kid. These things are super cool, both of these lunar bases. One of them is a base and one of them is a launch site. And then you have the refueling truck, that thing's cool too. And both of the satellite dishes, those are awesome. And you can tell this is an early piece because at the time they only had white and red Lego Space Guys. That's why it's cool to have a white and red Lego Space Guy in this thing. This red classic Space Guy that I acquired by himself actually has a way better chest piece logo. So that's what it would look like on a classic Lego Space Guy. Except on the white ones, it was a tan planet instead of a white planet, like on these red ones here. But he's in pretty good shape. His helmet is just a little bit bent, and you can see the marks on there a little bit. And obviously his chin strap is cracked, but it holds together good enough to where you can't tell. I believe this one's is too, but it's not cracked all the way. Something else that I wanted to compare was vintage versus modern Lego bricks. The biggest difference is obviously discoloration. Now this one looks like it's obviously like yellowed over time, but the differences in construction are small, but very clear once you look for them. By turning them over and looking at the interlocking pegs on the inside of the rectangles. Now, as you can see on the vintage ones, the pegs are solid and filled in. But on the modern brick, the pegs are hollowed out. So they have another smaller peg hole on the inside. And obviously LEGO did this because they could get the same function with slightly less plastic, but it adds up for every brick. Here we have another two identical LEGO pieces. Once again, the main difference is the discoloration. In fact, we'll have them in the same order the original ones were in, vintage and modern. And as you can see, they both each say LEGO on every peg. However, how we're going to be able to tell the difference is on the other side. On the inside of the modern one, you can see a serial number stamping, some other number I don't know of, maybe that's when it was made, and copyright LEGO. However, the vintage one just has what I would guess is a mold numbering on the inside of one of the peg holes, but no serial number, dating if that's what that was, and copyright. So that's another way that you can tell if it's a vintage or modern LEGO brick. I figured I may as well just talk about this Tatooine Luke that I got real quick because he doesn't seem to fit in very many of my other videos. I don't really want to talk about him in a Kenner's Star Wars story video, but I feel like he fits better in this LEGO video here. So this is the first variation of Tatooine Luke, and as you can see I have him with the chromed hilt lightsaber because that's what this Luke originally came with. And as you can see, the very first release of the Tatooine Luke has the thin-lined printing on his tunic and thin-lined printing on the belt and lines around his belt. So that's important to know if you're looking for an early Tatooine Luke, even the earliest of the yellow-toned skin LEGO Star Wars figures. There's a later one that has the yellow-toned skin that has a darker tunic line and belt line.